broke loose. So, for the third time, hello. We're here to talk about. We're going to get this intro great this time, guys, because we've done it 3 times now. We're here to talk about Star Trek Picard Season 3, Episode 6, Bounty. And I am Scott, and with me is
Blake
and Emily.
And if you can't hear Emily, I'm just going to give up. I'm just going to quit. I'm done.
Scott, our attempts at getting this right, I'm reminded of another time we've tried recording something with you, and all I'm missing is the damn newspaper.
Don't hit me. Okay. So we're here to talk about Bounty, Episode 6. And guys, we've finally come to the place we've been waiting for 6 weeks. Emily, Blake, and I do not know what happens next after this. But before we get to our predictions, let's talk about this episode. First off, big old spoiler warning. Even the name of the episode's a spoiler. So if you have not watched Bounty, be sure to leave, go watch it, and then come back and hear us talk about it. Because we do not want to spoil this episode for you. Now, I'm going to give you 3 seconds to leave if you do not want to be spoiled. 3, 2, 1. Bounty refers to the ship from Star Trek 4 and 3, actually.
It's the one with the whales.
Blake has said that 3 times now. It's funny. Okay, let's go ahead and get going. Let's do our first impressions, folks, and give us your first impressions in the chat. Those who haven't left us yet because, of our issues. Tell us what you thought of Bounty. But let's go to Emily first. First impressions on Bounty.
There was a lot going on. I really liked seeing Moriarty again. That was fantastic. And I actually really liked the storyline of Geordi and his daughters. I know that's not exactly super important to the plot, but it was nice to see, since so many of the previous series kind of avoid things like that.
Yeah, I think it's more important than you let on, just because character development's important. And yeah, we can talk about it. Blake, first impressions.
So I love this episode, and for one main reason. Scott, you and I are fans of starships.
Maybe.
We do love a good starship, especially the Constitution refit.
Maybe.
Oh, shut up.
Maybe.
But seeing for the first time on screen since Star Trek 6.
Yes.
The 1701A.
She's a beauty.
And just seeing that and the other ships with the Fleet Museum, I loved that part of it. But overall, again, the story with this one didn't drag. They brought Geordi into it. The bit on Daystrom Station and that reveal. Now, I kind of picked up on that early on with the reveal on Daystrom, just putting the pieces together, but that was really well done. I really love the way they're telling the story and bringing these characters in.
Yeah, this is my favorite of the season. And of course, it's the last one I've seen, so I don't know what happens in 7, 8, 9, 10. But I love the fact that we're not stretching this story out. And I kind of talked about this when we were leaving the nebula in episode 4, is a lot of times serialized television, not just Trek, but serialized television, and Trek to an extent, has stretched out stories much longer than they had to. In this case, this isn't we are not doing that. We are moving along. We've moved past the nebula. The Raffi and Worf story on Metalis Prime is done. We're now all together, kinda, and we're moving towards some sort of resolution. And of course, the stakes get raised at the end when we find out that Vanek has Troy in her little holding cell. But there's so much in here for just Trek fans, like Blake said, and we absolutely are going to talk about it. And again, if you're in the chat, tell us what you thought as well, too. Right now, you gave some love to the Enterprise A, but David here, he prefers the Connie, the original.
There's nothing wrong with that. And again, it was a beautiful shot the way they did it in here. I was a little surprised that they didn't try to use the Strange New Worlds version, honestly.
Samuel says, I'm not sure this was my favorite of the season, but it indeed was really good. Yeah, episode 4 was great. It had some very Trek motifs to it with space babies. Episode 5 had Ro. I just think episode 6 we're firing all cylinders here. So it'll be interesting to see how we want to talk about this. But let's go ahead and kind of break this up a little bit, because we really have 2 storylines. I won't say a subplot, because I think they both get the same amount of time. But let's do plot A first, which is Daystrom, where we find some of our intrepid heroes trying to figure out what was taken from Daystrom. What do you guys want to talk about?
So with the heroes in Daystrom, like I mentioned in my kind of initial thoughts, was that little tour that they did, or not tour, but when they started in, and you've got, the Crow, you've got then Moriarty, because I'll admit, when I first saw the trailer, I was a little dubious of how are they going to work in Moriarty into this. How are they going to work in this holodeck program that they accidentally created, and how is this going to work? But the way they did it, that the security system at Daystrom was Data's memories basically manifesting themselves, I thought was really cool. But also, just as they walk through that corridor, the little Easter eggs that you get through there, you've got Kirk's body, you've got the Genesis 2 device, and they played the Wrath of Khan theme when they showed that Genesis device. This is one of those, we go back to that Stephen Barton interview, and he mentioned, what was it, 7 or 8 themes that they used over the course of this run?
Yeah, he said he did, I think he said 7 Trek themes in 90 seconds. And you can parse some of them out in that little walkway. And when we interviewed Stephen, we all had to be quiet because we couldn't say what that was, but we knew exactly what he was talking about, and I was just waiting for it. As you mentioned, we got the Genesis torpedo. A couple other ones that actually our buddies over at Trek Culture pointed out that I didn't catch. The first one was a Valeron. Oh, God, I can't even pronounce it because it's stupid. That green thing from Nemesis is in there. We have an attack tribble, which I want to... they've always joked about how the Klingons wiped out the Tribbles because there was a great war between the Tribbles and the Klingons. And now we know that the Tribbles have teeth. So I get it now. You mentioned...
And we all know that the Tribbles are because David was an idiot.
Yes.
It's the short tracks.
It's all his fault. And then we had, as you mentioned, Kirk's body, which, there's a lot of people out there who really appreciate beta canon, which is like the novels, the comics, stuff that's not on film. And they actually already wiped out the novel universe. They actually had a big meta crisis novel came out a few years ago that basically just everything that was in the books got wiped out. And it was a different universe, and that universe sacrificed itself to save the Prime universe, which is what we're watching here on TV. That being said, this negates 2 things in one novel, and that is William Shatner's The Return. Because if you ever read The Return, and I did back in high school because I was a nerd, his body was retrieved from his resting place, but he was then brought back to life, which obviously it seems like that's not the case here. And also, in The Ashes of Eden, which is the novel before Return, the Enterprise A is destroyed, defending some half Romulan, half Klingon colonists. So all William Shatner's books just got wiped out in one episode. Sorry, Bill. I'm sorry. They're just not canon anymore. Actually, it was Judith and Garfield Reed Stevens, and Shatner put his name on it, but that's for another story. Emily, what do you got?
Okay, so can we just start with how kind of comical it was that when they're in the entryway trying to do the key and they get through, I think it was after they get through, and they're like, please no food or beverages in the research area. Like, I don't know, that just struck me as funny because you think of it like a research area in a museum. I did enjoy the attack tribble. I thought that was quite entertaining. And
Emily,
kind of raise some questions about... Can we just start with how they actually fit together? Because usually when you've seen them in the past, they're always rounded. Like they're just a little sphere of fur, and then it like splays out and attacks the glass. But when I first saw the crow, the first thing I thought of actually was Seven, because wasn't her ship that her parents were on the Raven, and she was having dreams and trying to connect that. So when I first saw it, my first thought was Seven, and I was like, okay, but that wouldn't make sense for this. And then Moriarty shows up, and I was like, hell yes, this is it. I love it.
Because it goes actually back to a TNG episode.
Mm-hmm.
Because there was one when Data was experimenting with dreaming, and he was dreaming of Soon, and the crow was in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I had forgotten that reference. I immediately thought of Seven.
That's when. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry for stepping on you, Emily. That's when I started kind of putting the pieces together of what the hell was going on, because we've got a couple red herrings here, and they gave it to us in the trailers. First off, everyone's like, "Oh, Moriarty's back. He's going to be the main villain." No, not so much. No, but also because Geordi actually calls it out in the trailer, we just assume that the android that we find here is going to be Lore, but it's not. It is, but it's not. And so when they started doing, it was first off the crow, but then pop goes the weasel, and everything else. You start figuring out, okay, this is Data. And
yeah, as soon as they started the pop goes the weasel, I'm like, no, that's Data.
Yeah, no pop goes the weasel for Seven, at least for some. Wow, that was a bad joke. So, yeah. So I love the fact that they have they have given us all this. They've allowed the fans to run rampant with assumptions, and none of those are right. And I do love the fact that, yes, we've seen Data die twice now. And so, but I think you can, I'm kind of torn on it, to the fact that I think the death scene, as much as I dog on season 1 of Picard, I think the death scene of Data in season 1 of Picard is really good. But you can't get the entire gang back together without Data.
Correct.
You just can't. And having Lore there or B4 there isn't the same. You need Data. And we've already had Data back now. I mean, he's only there for a few seconds because then Lore takes over. But Data's in there. And I love the fact that they have given Brent Spiner a reason to be old as an android. And I love the fact that sooner or later, Data's going to reemerge and we're going to get the old gang back together. And I like that. I like that a lot.
I'm interested to see how that will work, because Lore was the one with the emotion range that Data didn't have. So I want to know if they'll actually be able to integrate that and we'll see Data with emotion.
But they shouldn't anymore, right? Because Data stole the chip from Lore.
But I thought that got like they undid it because it was causing problems. But it's been a while since I watched TNG.
Yeah, no, so yeah, Lore. Yeah, no, go ahead, Blake.
So they took the chip from Lore, and it was in Generations. Data implanted the chip, but it kind of went wrong, and they wanted to remove it, but they said they could not in Generations remove it.
Yep. And then in
so it just kind of stayed.
Yeah, I thought it got like disabled or something, so it.
No, because then in First Contact, so they put the chip in. Data put the chip in Generations after shoving Beverly off the plank. When they did the walk the plank scene, and it basically fused in. They could not turn it off because Data in Generations asked to be taken off duty till they could find a way to remove it, and Picard said no. But come First Contact, when they come First Contact, when they were getting ready to go, get their ass whooped by the Borg and engineering, Data was, doing what Data was prone to do and talking, and Picard said, "Data, perhaps you should turn off your emotion chip for now," and Data was able to flip it off. So he still had the chip in. He just got the ability to turn it off and on. And
then the writers for Insurrection and Nemesis decided we don't like the emotion chips. So we're just not even going to reference it at all. Or no, Insurrection, they said he left it at home. He left his chip at home, much like his dog or cat. But yeah, so no, I mean, and that Data, with or without the emotion chip, got blowed up in Nemesis. So the emotion chip is gone, unless there was a second one. So I think we'll see. I bet they don't even reference it. I bet Lore just acts like Lore and Data acts like Data, and you'll probably have B4 pop in there for a few seconds and add like B4. But Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a big thing. I think what's going to be interesting, and I think what they're kind of, and this is a prediction of mine because I don't know, we haven't seen anything else. I think that they're going to leave. I don't think they're going to kill Data again. That's just freaking redundant at this point. But I think they're going to leave the soon android as an amalgamation of all three. They're going to come to an understanding and basically be brothers in one body. And that's how we're going to end this thing.
Well, we already saw that little flash of B4.
Yes, you're right. You're right. Mm-hmm.
So, because they did that kind of cycle through where it went from Data to Lore to B4 and back.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So I bet you for a couple episodes we're going to have Lore playing around in there, and then they're going to figure out a way to have Data again. I'm thinking like Bruce Banner and the Hulk, you know? After a while, they just start kind of hanging out together in the same head. But I do like that we didn't think we were going to get Data back. We knew we were going to get Lore back, but we didn't think we were going to get Data back. So I love the fact that they threw that out. And really, much like Roe, no one was the wiser. I've been watching fan theories for the past 2 months because I know this was going to happen, and no one got it. I didn't see anyone say that it was actually Data. I saw a lot of people saying that Moriarty was the AI, which they were close, but no one got that either. So, what else on Daystrom?
Now, I did see some fan commentary, and this is kind of one of those. The fans need to just shut up sometimes because they argue about they don't have enough callbacks. It's not it doesn't have the right feel, but then they include that clip from Encounter at Farpoint. Mm-hmm. With, the whistle and Data just looking over at Riker and going, marvelous. They include that clip, which fit. It worked. Mm-hmm.
It looked pretty, too. They definitely upscaled it. Clip in. They definitely used the 4K clip. It was upscaled. It was nice.
Yeah, it looked really good.
It's kind of one of those, I like seeing that, but, watching some of these fan people that just want to complain for the sake of complaining is starting to get old.
I'm leaving for a vacation in literally like 12 hours, and I'm on a forum for the ship we're going to be on, and there's people just complaining left and right, and I just threw it out there. Rule number 1, someone is always going to complain. Rule number 2, ignore them. End of rules. So I'm just done. I mean, it's just old. Emily and I were talking about this a few minutes ago before we started recording. There are people out there who have seen episodes 7 through 10, but actually, for one reason or another, the powers that be allowed those who are more anti-New Trek to see those episodes. And I'm actually trying to get one of them to come on, so I'm not like trying to bash them, but I mean, there was a decided decision that that people who were not very happy with seasons 1 and season 2 and Discovery and everything else have gotten to see more of this. And all of them have come out and said that it's really, really good. The last 2 episodes are a movie and so forth and so on. But it's just interesting that sometimes the loudest people in the room get good stuff while us just have to wait. It's interesting.
Well, and I do think it comes down to, Sean Ferrick made this point on our interview, is there's this difference between people that have legitimate complaints or legitimate issues with the creative direction, the lighting, with these various pieces. And then there are these professional trolls out there who are trying to do this for ratings.
As David says, no matter what, someone will complain. And let's be honest, we're all critics of TV and movies, and I complain a lot. Blake complains a lot. Emily complains more than all of us because she's a woman.
I do not.
And for those of you that just picked up that comment from Scott, you can send your comments to Gray17. Tag us in the comments below or post it on your social media app of choice.
Hold on. I will help you all out. There you go. Send it in. But also, Peter asks, didn't they say Lal was also in there with Data and Lore? Yeah. So, I mean, it's like all the Soons. I mean, it's probably like, hell, Data's mom was an android at some point. So it just depends if they downloaded this stuff. I'm going to say download, by the way, and I'm just going to completely ignore the stupid-ass crap. I'm just saying, no, we don't complain here, but I'm complaining now. I'm going to ignore the stupid-ass crap of the whole, we got one little microbe of Data, and we were able to extrapolate all his memories from it. Now, we're just going to pretend that never happened, right? Can we just do that, please?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
Now, with Daystrom, are we going to discuss Vatic as part of
I
Daystrom,
think
or are
so.
we?
I think that's the best way because she's the one kind of dogging them throughout. So yeah.
So, because that's the other piece is there's been all these theories about whether Vatic is actually a changeling, just working for the changelings. I think we got our answer this time because Vatic did a full-on changeling
Rant.
reveal. And again, we've commented on this before. Just the creepiness by which she can play this character.
Mm-hmm.
When she changed from the Starfleet security officer back to Vatic, and she's just got that smile. Hi. It, she is so unnerving in this.
She's great. She is absolutely just playing just crazy so well. And even the start of the episode, she's like, "I'm tired too. We're all tired." Like she's great. I'm loving her, and she's getting enough time too. That's the great thing about having a big bad. And actually, I would say the Borg Queen from season 2 was kind of the same way, kind of. But when you have a big bad, but you give them time to kind of, ruminate and choose some scenery and come in and come out over the course of the season, it really does help. And also it helps that you have an exceptional actor doing the job, of course. I will still say, and we're not to predictions yet, I still don't think the changelings are the big bad. I mean, they are a bad. I think they're a major part of it, but I still think there's something else that we haven't seen yet. And we have some evidence to back that up too. But I just think there's something else coming. And
Yeah, and I would agree with that because, and that's now we know what the changeling stole from Daystrom, right? They stole the body of Jean-Luc Picard.
Mm-hmm.
Changelings don't need to steal a body.
Nope.
They don't need to. They can already impersonate him. They don't need the body for that.
What does God need with Picard's genitalia?
Yeah, exactly. It's it's the Star Trek Five. What does God need with a starship? What does a changeling need with a corpse?
Specifically, Picard's corpse. I mean,
yeah.
Let's go get the emissary. Okay, I can maybe make that make sense, but
Picard? And why do they need Picard's son in addition to Picard's body? Because that's the other side of it.
Yeah.
They need Picard's body and his son.
Yeah.
So there's something else going on here.
Yeah, and I also think that's why most of us not cool kids haven't seen what's next. I think 7's going to be the reveal, as in episode 7. That's my assumption. I think episode 7 is going to be here it is, because then I think episode 8, 9, and 10 is the oh god, here we go, third act. Let's get everything going. But we'll talk about that in a minute. Anything else for Daystrom, Emily or Blake, or Vatic? I did love the banter between Riker and Worf. You used to poke back.
I liked it when they were getting beamed onto Daystrom after what Worf had said something about, I prefer pacifism, and Riker's like, yeah, we're all gonna die.
We're all gonna die.
That was great.
Jonathan Frakes is a treasure. Michael Dorn's great too, but Jonathan Frakes he is the star of this season. Is he? At least in my opinion.
I like that they've given his character a lot more range and depth. He's not just the floozy of Enterprise anymore.
Hey, we discussed the Riker maneuver in our last Babylon 5 episode, and I'll leave it at that. Man's a beast. Okay.
Scott wants to get Riker maneuvered.
I'll be your chair.
Oh God.
Okay, so while some of our heroes are on Daystrom and then winding up on Vatic's ship at the very end, the rest of our crew get the hell out of there and race to the open, loving arms of Geordi LaForge, or so they thought. This is where you guys talk.
Yeah, I was actually kind of surprised at Geordi's reaction when they showed up. I mean, in a way, yeah, it does make sense because it's from the position of like trying to protect his kids. But I was also surprised in that like you've been with these people before and all the ridiculous situations you've been in, and they're coming to you like there's a problem in Star Trek Command, like in Starfleet Command, and we need your help. And for him to be like, yeah, I don't know about all this.
I love it. I love it because we're 30 years, or at least 20 from when we saw these guys last. And if they came in and they were the exact same characters from Nemesis or even from All Good Things, It doesn't make sense. People develop, people change, and
Yeah,
I
and I
love that.
didn't expect him to be like, woohoo, let's go. But
Yeah.
there was something about the amount of reluctance that I don't know.
He,
See that
I'm not disappointed. I'm not angry. I was surprised.
he's a helicopter parent.
well, and I'll agree with Emily here a little bit because I took it as not so much reluctance as almost an undertone of resentment for getting his daughter involved in this
Yes.
or daughter being in there. And in a way, I think it might have been a little heavy-handed on the writing, especially with the lecture from Sidney LaForge later about I learned this from you, and you kind of knew what direction it was going to go. I'm not saying it was bad. I just think it was maybe a little heavy-handed with that part of it.
I will give you that they probably should have, and I get where we are in the story, and it would have been hard to bring him in earlier, but because Geordi only is going to get 5 episodes at the most, they had to give him a little bit more here, and that means you have to have a little bit more drama. But I truly like the fact that he is a helicopter parent, and will be the first to say I really can't stand helicopter parents much. So it was funny to me to have that, to where he has gotten so concerned for the livelihood of his kids, his 2 daughters, that he has one practically locked away as his assistant, and the other one he is so upset when she even is at all in danger. And it makes sense for Geordi. Of all of the cast from TNG, it makes sense. He's the one who has had so many issues with family. He's lost his father. We saw his issues with his mother. I mean, he's got some weird obsession with Leia Brahms, and I assume Leia is the mother we're talking about here, but that's a whole nother thing. Geordi is the one who I think would be overly protective of his kids. So it makes sense to me. I can see where you're coming from in the fact that maybe it was a little too drawn out, or maybe it was a little too predictable, but I love the fact that we have a dynamic here that's just different. And I think LeVar Burton pulls it off. He's an amazing actor. He can pull it off.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it.
His acting in the scene was absolutely fantastic. I would like to know who their mom is, because Leia Brahms, I believe, was married.
Well, there's no divorce in the 25th century.
Well, I'm just saying that one doesn't seem very likely, but it was actually nice to see him have a family, because in TNG we saw him struggle with relationships so much. But to know that, he has created this family that is so important to him, that was really nice.
I can't remember if we talked about this before, but they actually even named his kids after the same names that they gave them in All Good Things. Sidney is absolutely called out in All Good Things, and in All Good Things he says his wife is Leia. So
yeah. So I will say though, Geordi had probably 2 of my favorite lines in this episode.
Yeah.
2 favorite moments. One is, in the conference room, and he's sitting there with Picard and goes, "Leave it to you, Jean-Luc, to turn parenthood into a galactic incident."
Yes.
I loved that one. But also the bit after the cloaking device gets stolen, and he's, pissed off at Picard over, "You stole a goddamn cloaking device from my bird of prey." And then they're standing there, and there's just that look between them, Jack, Sid, and just that nod of the head. They're both realizing, son of a bitch.
We got a couple things in the chat too. Miss Powell, who obviously is hearing us now, which is good because we were questioning that. People forget that Geordi's mom was missing in action. True. And they also say, it's similar to Beverly, who lost her parents in Starfleet, and Wesley is missing in action. Yeah, I think the 2 that we're going to have some family issues are Beverly and Geordi, and guess who are having family issues in this season? Beverly and Geordi.
Yeah, I totally forgot that there was even an episode where they mentioned he married Leia, because all I remembered was the awkward replay in the holodeck and her being in a relationship.
It was the alternate future in All Good Things.
Yeah, David called it out too. Leah is mentioned as Geordi's wife all the way back in All Good Things. And yes, it is an interesting relationship because he falls in love with the hologram of the good doctor, the scientist. And then a few episodes later, actually maybe a couple seasons later, I can't remember, she shows up and Geordi's like, "Oh, it's my long lost love." And she's like, "Who the frick are you?"
Right, she was all creeped out like, this is weird.
But at the end, I think they come to an understanding, and obviously, as we know in the alternate future, it becomes more than that. So I'm okay with her getting divorced and having 2 kids with Geordi. I'm good with that. And I'm looking forward to what happens next, because obviously at the end, Geordi's like, okay, here we go. But let's talk about these ships, Blake. You called out the ships already in your first impressions. Let's talk about this. There is so much eye candy in this episode. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, because you had the Defiant, tough little ship. You had a Romulan Warbird, which was the CGI model from season 1.
Mm-hmm.
You had the Bounty, obviously, which we've already kind of touched on because they had to steal a cloaking device from somewhere, or as Worf put it, superior Klingon technology.
Which now, for some reason, can't transport while cloaking, but
so
whatever.
I can buy that because if you're taking, it was a Klingon ship that it transported through.
That's true.
We're dealing with a Federation starship with transporters that, other than the Defiant, aren't really meant to beam through a cloaking device. Now, the second question is, if they stole the cloaking device off the Bounty, the Defiant had one too.
Well, but maybe the Romulans took that back. That's what I assume.
They might have taken that back. Well, plus the original Defiant got destroyed, and I don't think they ever established it.
Yeah, I don't think the Sao Paulo had a cloaking device. You're right, because I mean,
yes, it may not have had it.
Yeah, Sao Paulo came in the last few episodes, and I don't think it ever cloaked.
Now, I will say, Voyager towards its tail end had went to CGI for the models of the ships.
Yes.
The model for Voyager that they used in this,
yes,
was freaking stunning.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it looked fantastic.
And I love Seven's reactions to it.
Yeah.
She obviously still has a connection to that ship, and for obvious reasons. And
I mean, Voyager, it almost looked animated cartoonish. This, I mean, it looked good.
Yeah.
You had the other one I want to point out because it was in kind of a blink and you miss it background.
Yes, excellent.
Doug Drexler finally got on screen his NX-01 refit.
For those who don't know what Blake's talking about, Doug Drexler, who is a masterful ship designer, designed a new NX-01 Enterprise for what hopefully would have been season 5, but never happened. And it looks more like the lineage to the Constitution class. It has a secondary hull, and the warp nacelle pylons stretch down to that secondary hull. You can find lots of pictures on it. It's been in the Ship of a Line calendar, but it's a pretty ship.
Yeah, you also had the Excelsior class in there. You had, I believe, an Akira and a Steamrunner class show up in there.
Yeah, you had Kronos 1 as well.
Yeah, you had Kronos 1.
But I think for me, when they showed the Defiant, or I guess the Sao Paulo, and they started playing the music, I was just like, yes. Now I had asked Steven when we interviewed him, the composer, do we get some DS9 themes in here? And he said yes. I hope this wasn't all he was referring to, and I'll just leave it at that.
I will say the other ship picture, the framing shot that I really liked is because the Titan is a Neo-Constitution class, is what they're calling it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
There's the one shot where they show the Titan, and it's right around where they're getting the cloaking device working, right?
Uh-huh.
They show the Titan sitting there in its little circle hiding out, and you see the Enterprise A behind it.
Yes.
And just that pan shot where you see the 1701A, that Constitution refit, pan across that Neo-Constitution class, I love that shot, because that just the design lineage from the movies to there. Emily's laughing at us, but I don't care.
It's true though. I mean, that was one of my complaints. I had many complaints with Trek in general. The new Trek is, even though they have so much more money to play with and such better special effects, they don't really idolize the starships like they used to. We don't get these beauty shots anymore. A lot of people have been calling out the shot from episode 5 where you have the Intrepid creeping up like a shark coming after the Titan after it's been hit. You don't get those beauty shots a lot anymore. And in this series, because of the showrunners and the people who really do enjoy Trek, you're starting to get that again. Now, Samuel says, I don't even like the Intrepid class that much, but the Voyager was gorgeous. I'm the same way. I was never a fan of the dildo in space. I really wasn't. And again, yeah, I'm a Voyager hater, I know, but even their ship design was meh. And then Miss Powell says, and when the Voyager family went their separate ways, Seven was denied Starfleet, and each ship was killed because he started a relationship. So even Seven is still looking for her family. Yep, and I think I don't think this is the last we've seen of Jerry Ryan. I really do believe that, and I know there's rumors flying around and everything else, but if Jerry Ryan and hopefully Todd Stashwick don't get their own ship and an own show, I'll be severely disappointed because I think it'd be good.
Let's touch on that for a minute because Terry Matalas is the one that blew that way the hell open.
Yes.
Because I can't remember who, someone made a tweet and Terry basically responded to this tweet of, I have this thing that's called Star Trek Legacies.
Yes.
And that did nothing because then that thing immediately started trending. It got mentioned by LeVar and Mika Burton when they were doing an interview on The View with Whoopi Goldberg. So Terry's tweet kind of went all over the place there, which, by the way, real quick back reference, you mentioned episode 5 with the Intrepid.
Yes.
As some people found out after that, fuck around and find out with Terry Matalas because Armin Shimmerman made a comment about the warp nacelle burning in space, to which Terry Matalas just replied to him with a picture from DS9 showing all of this fire in space and went, have you seen this show?
David also says Beauty Shots probably would be there, but they only have 10 episodes. But that's my point, David. We're getting them now. They only have 10 episodes, but we've gotten them. I didn't like the Titan in the trailers. The shots we got of the Titan in the trailers just didn't sell it for me. But by episode 2, I was in love with the ship because we got to see it in action. I think when I finally started loving the Titan is when she warps in and breaks the tractor beam. That's when I was like, oh my God, that's a ship. And the same thing here. We're getting these. I think the Intrepid is god-awful ugly. Not the Intrepid class, but the Intrepid that we saw last episode. But it looked really good in that one shot. So we are getting it.
You want to talk about a ship that looks like a sex toy in space? There's a few things you can Google and compare to the Intrepid image. And sorry, Emily.
Yeah, and
I'm just gonna say here
well, as we're talking about spin-offs, Samuel makes a good point. Like in Discovery season 2, they left that we needed an Anson Mount show, and we got that. Same with Seven and Shaw. The best thing to come out of Discovery is Strange New Worlds. I'm sorry. I like Discovery, and seasons 3 and 4 have been much better than seasons 1 and 2.
I still haven't made it through season 1.
You just go move past it. Just move past it. Get to Anson Mount in season 2. Even season 2 is not that good, but it's got Anson Mount as Captain Pike. So,
all right, I can handle that.
And it's got Spock, who I think I'm blanking on the actor's name right now, but
Ethan Peck.
Ethan Peck, thank you. Ethan Peck does a great Spock. Even in Discovery season 2, he does a great Spock, and he does even better in Strange New Worlds. So what else we got, guys? What do we want to talk about before we start talking about what's next?
So I think just, again, the way they've brought the characters in, there's been reason before it. It's not just walking in, and even Geordi coming in this one where they bring in Worf to join the main cast, not just off the message screen. There's reasoning and it makes sense. The way they introduce these characters, it fits in the storyline. It's not a throwaway or a coincidence or anything like that. But the other part to touch on is, let's talk Jack Crusher a little bit, because this is the you almost spoiled it last week, Scott.
I did, but then we were recording so I deleted it. For those playing the home game, I started asking, do we really believe that's Ironic Syndrome? But I was asking it for episode 5 because I forgot it was in episode 6 that they said that. So, but you never saw it because we weren't live, so it was great.
But no, we don't think that just seems like a distraction from what's actually going on.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I think it gets him off the board for an episode. I mean, he's obviously here in this episode, but it allows us to not worry about that for a bit. It's like, oh, he's got the same thing Picard had, and he's having delusions. Moving on, let's talk Daystrom and let's talk Geordi. We'll come back to Jack in episodes, whatever. But yeah, I don't think it's a syndrome.
In that moment, though, because Jack and Picard, towards the end of the episode, when they're talking, and And Jack is telling Picard, though, about all the traits he had that he knew he got from his mother. And then there were these things he wondered where they came from.
Mm-hmm.
And then tells Picard, maybe it isn't just some bullshit illness that you gave me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, that moment where you almost start to see that relationship forming between Picard and his son, which I think is going to come into play later.
And this is why I do think Jack is Picard's son. There's a lot of people saying Jack's a changeling, Jack's, a sleeper agent. I could see him being a sleeper agent, but he is biologically Picard's son, because if he's not, it's such a waste of a good story. It's absolutely a waste. It's much like when people were saying Riker's a changeling. You just wasted so much character development if you do that. And luckily, fans don't write scripts, so it's okay, because it's not the case. But yeah, I think Jack has got something going on with him, but he absolutely is Picard's son, for sure.
Agree.
Now, Ms. Powell says, I think that the Borg nanites are activating the Ironic syndrome, which is why Jack has a full-blown syndrome and Picard got into it a lot later. I don't think we're going to hear about the Borg. That's just my opinion. I think the Borg have been done. The Borg were done in season 1. The Borg were done in season 2. I think Terry Matalas wants to play with something new. That's just my guess. So let's move into predictions then, guys, because we're finally here. We have not seen 7, 8, 9, or 10. Oh, and actually, Christopher Jackson says, Ironic syndrome wouldn't give Jack the combat skills to take out 4 changelings. I agree. That was never part of the side effects that Picard had to deal with, was being able to manhandle changelings. I agree with that.
Yeah. Well, and even Beverly commented that in addition to the dreams and hallucinations, Jack had violent outbursts.
Yes.
So there's something other than the erotics there.
Agreed. So as I was saying before Christopher rudely interrupted me on the chat, sorry, we have not seen what's next. We were lucky and got press screeners, but the press screeners only got to episode 6. So we have been left at this freaking cliffhanger with Troy on Vadic's ship for 6 weeks. Actually, longer than that, because we got like 2 weeks before. So we've been waiting 2 months for y'all to catch up. And you finally catched up. So in the chat, tell us what you think is going to happen. What is going to happen in episode 7, 8, 9, 10? We've only got 4 left. So how is this going to end? Emily, how do you think this is going to end? What do you see coming in the next 4 episodes?
I have no idea at all. At this point, I'm not even sure I want to guess because I probably couldn't come up with anything close. I am really fascinated by how they're going to create a storyline of these changelings stealing Picard's body and wanting Picard's son and the why behind it. I'm really looking forward to figuring out why and who is orchestrating this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Blake, what about you?
So my personal head theory at the moment.
Oh, he's gonna bring out the head cheese. Here it comes.
Yes. So there was that scene, I think it was last episode. Jack's eyes flashed red.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
We've seen before where the Pirates and the Prophets would go, fuck with other people to have their little shit fest. I almost wonder if the Pirates aren't somehow involved with this splinter group of the changelings. Because it fits with the revenge narrative against Starfleet. They both have an axe to grind with Starfleet. The reason that the Pirates never got anywhere was because of the emissary to the Prophets, which was Benjamin Sisko. So I could kind of see it that maybe it's the Pirates somehow involved messing with the splinter group of changelings.
Mm. So I could potentially see that, except for, I am a diehard Deep Space Nine fan. Okay, Deep Space Nine is my trek, 100%. I'm actually doing a rewatch right now because of this show.
I have another reason for throwing this out here, by the way.
Okay. Well, let me just say one thing and I'll give it back to you. I don't like the Pa Wraiths. I think the Pa Wraiths were stupid. I think they were always stupid in the 5 or 6 episodes we got with them. And I think it's I love What You Leave Behind. It is an amazing series finale. But the Fire Caves is BS. Blake, go ahead. What else you got?
So in Picard's office in the we never saw it in season 2 proper, but it was in the teaser.
Yes.
There was that Bajoran tablet stone thing.
Yes.
That held the spirits of the Pa Wraith and the prophets.
Yes.
And that was in Picard's office.
And back in season 2, we thought these guys are just dumb, and they just grabbed a prop off the shelf and stuck it in there because they don't know what they're doing. But Metalis was
Metalis was involved in that. I don't think they're that stupid. I think there was something. I think there's something there.
Well, you know what? If they can fix the Pa Wraiths to be something I don't think is the weakest part of Deep Space Nine, more power to them. So for me, I have a couple things. One, I've already said, Jack is definitely Picard's son, and probably some kind of sleeper agent, but we'll fix it by the end. I do think that something with the Enterprise C is happening because we have had way too many references to yesterday's Enterprise. Do I think it's Sela and Tasha Yar? I don't know. I honestly don't know. But we have seen a couple different close-up shots of the Ambassador-class Enterprise C, the model. We've seen it a couple times. And obviously Rachel Garrett was the statue they took out. Now, that was a distraction because they didn't want people to know that they took Picard's body, and we know that now. But I also think if you're going to make a distraction, you could have picked anything. Why did you pick a brand new statue to Rachel Garrett to take out? Why? I don't know.
I thought it was less about the statue and more about the actual facility itself, and she just happened to be in front of it.
But there's so many recruitment facilities. They could have picked any one of them, right? Because this was just a Starfleet recruitment facility.
Well, and the reference was to the Red Lady, which the Red Lady was the Rachel Garrett statue.
Yeah, and I figured that was like a distinguishing code.
It could very well be. It could very well be. But the reason why I bring this up is I go back to our interview with Stephen Barton. And he was very good. He didn't spoil anything for us. Even when we went off recording, I tried. He wouldn't spoil anything for us.
We tried so much.
But he did say no one has gotten no one has gotten it yet. And he even said there was one scene that they actually had to go in and digitally change because it almost gave too much away. And he didn't tell us what that scene was, but he's like, you wouldn't even catch it. But after they saw it on playback, they realized, oh, that's too much. And they dialed it back. And I wonder if that's tied into this somehow. And he flat out said, up until we recorded our interview with him about 3 weeks ago, he said no one had gotten it yet in terms of what is actually going on. The other thing I will say in my predictions is I absolutely think we're going to Deep Space Nine. I think there have been way too many Deep Space Nine references for us not to at least go to that station. It may just be for a bit. It may not be a main point of the plot. But I absolutely do think we're going to see Deep Space Nine in the next 4 episodes somehow.
Well, and the other thought to your Enterprise C piece, because I know you said they wiped out the beta canon.
Yeah.
But the beta canon, the Enterprise C did not go straight back to Jennifer.
Yes.
It actually went forward to 2409 or 24-ish something. I think it was the early 2400s.
25, right? 2509? Because it was in the 2400s, right?
Yeah.
Because TNG is the 2400s, yeah.
But it went somewhere, and it basically ended up captured at a Tholian facility and was held by the Tholians. And then, so obviously the timeline never changed. The Klingons still whooped the Federation's ass. All that happened.
Sure.
Bajorans discovered the wormhole, but no Federation to stop the Dominion. They basically rolled over everything. So I could also see, depending on where that goes, if it is going to be an Enterprise C tie-in. We've always heard about bringing back the Tholians somehow.
That'd be fun.
And so, I mean, it could also be the Tholians coming back into play.
And David, you are reading my freaking mind, because the other thing I was going to say was just what you said in the chat. Chief O'Brien is coming back. Cole Meany is the only real TNG main character, I guess, except for Reginald Barclay, that we have not seen come back yet. And this is my final prediction. And I said this when we were interviewing Stephen Barton again. I refer back to Marvel and Kevin Feige. Okay, I said I sometimes do movie reviews with the Front Row Network, and when we were reviewing Infinity War, Avengers Infinity War, where half the people died, and they were like, oh, who's going to stay dead? I'm like, no one's staying dead. No one's staying dead. I was kind of wrong. Gamora died, but whatever. And Black Widow, but that's neither here nor there. No one's going to stay dead because For 10 years, Kevin Feige has had on his wall, I guarantee it, a big spread of all of the Marvel characters, and he has been building towards that shot. He wants that shot as his crowning achievement of all the Marvel characters together. And what do we get? We get Avengers Endgame, and you got the shot. Terry Metalis has on his wall somewhere a picture of the entire TNG cast on the bridge of the Enterprise. And we are not ending this season without the entire cast of TNG on the Enterprise. What Enterprise is it going to be? I don't know. But they're going to be on the bridge of the Enterprise. And it's going to be all of them. And it's going to be the real Data. And I think it's going to have several other ones in there too we haven't even seen yet. So of all the predictions I'm making, that's the one I'm guaranteeing. I'm putting a lock on that. You can bet money on that one. They're going to be on the bridge of the Enterprise, all of them together. That's going to happen. I don't know for sure. I haven't watched it. But there's no way you do all this and you don't end it that way. You just don't. Anybody else?
I was just looking up with that Enterprise C theory. It is right around the time where Picard season 3 is set, is right where the Enterprise C goes in beta canon.
So early 2500s, right?
24s.
Oh yeah, we're in the 25th century. Man, math is good. Math is good. So yes, TNG was in the 2300s. Now we're in the 2400s. Thank you. Anybody else in the chat before we finish up? You guys got predictions, thoughts? Are we all completely wrong? What do you think? Terry, are you out there? Can you give me the copies of the videos, please?
Please.
Please. If not, we're going to go ahead and wind it down there for this discussion. Oh, David's, including Chief Engineer Bill or Biff? Okay. We'll go ahead and wind it down there. Next week, we'll be with you for an all-new episode for all of us. I have no idea what happens next, and it's exciting. I'm finally here. But we're looking forward to discussing this. And as we've been told by many people, I think we're in for a hell of an end run here. We've got episodes 7 and 8 coming up. And then everyone I've talked to who has either been a part of it or have seen it, episodes 9 and 10 are the TNG movie we never got. And Stephen Barton again said that he believes, based on the edit he saw, that episode 10 is a double episode. Over almost 120 minutes, he said. So we got some big stuff a-coming. Yeah, Samuel says, good chat. Glad you finally caught up. Yes, we agree, because it's been really annoying that we have been trying to be not spoilerly for a while.
And I will say, for every one of you out there that saw that ending with Troy on the Shrike, for every one of you that saw that and were pissed off going, damn it, we have to wait a week to see this. 8 weeks.
We've been waiting 2 months for you all to catch the frick up. Thank you for finally doing it. It took you long enough. Blake and I both were so pissed when we watched that final episode. We're like, what? Seriously? Okay, so we'll go ahead and wind it down there. Please be sure to like, subscribe, follow, check us out. I will definitely edit this video to where there isn't like 10 minutes of dead space at the beginning, so that would be great. And be sure to check out our other shows. Obviously, we are a Babylon 5 podcast, so we are knee-deep in Season 2 of Babylon 5. And Now for a Word, which is one of my favorite episodes of Season 2, is coming out. Our review is coming out this Wednesday. Now, you'll have to wait to see if it's other people's favorite or not, but for me it was. And we'll continue to keep churning those out, and we've got some really fun stuff planned. I've still got some interviews up my sleeve for both Babylon 5 and for Star Trek, and we're working on some other stuff too that we'll be announcing here shortly. So be sure to hit that subscribe button and that notify bell icon so you know when we go live again. Until next week when we talk about, I don't know what the episode title is, I didn't look. I've been Scott, and with me has been
Blake
and Emily.
And we'll see you. Oh, actually, no. I'm gonna let's boldly get the hell out of here. I like that as a catch. And
end. Before we boldly do that, the next episode title is Dominion.
Okay. Seriously,
Scott just made a mess. Scott now needs the bounty, so whoever mentioned the quicker picker-upper, please send that to Scott immediately.
I have not looked ahead, guys. I knew all the episode titles until this point, but I purposely have not looked ahead. And I have goosebumps. I can feel my hair standing on end.
I guess next week is a DS9 rewatch. So no one
I legitimately just watched The Search Part 1 and 2 like 2 nights ago. So I'm ready.
Rewatching
I'm ready.
B5 season 1.
Yeah, Christopher's like, I didn't mean to rudely interrupt. No, I was kidding, man. Thank you for posting in the chat. Welcome to the fun. Click subscribe and notify. Okay, until next week, when as I said, I think we're gonna find out who the real big bads are, and oh my God, we will. I've already done this, so I'm just gonna say